First thing today is a fireside chat. So what we need is a proper fire, right?
Exactly.
And what we also need is our guest from Australia.
So please give a hand to Nick Muldoon.
You can sit. You can take your seat there. Thanks.
Okay. So we prepared some questions to ask him about his experience. Nick is an Australian who worked in the US in Silicon Valley in San Francisco, and he moved back to Australia. But the first question is, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background and your personal story and how you came about moving back to Australia.
Sure. I was actually, my first business was a business that I started in high school, and it was small office, home office, computer IT support, and it was completely under the radar. I did cash in hand jobs, and it was really successful. It allowed me to buy a whole lot of computer equipment, which was cool, and do a whole lot of other stuff and travel. And I sold that business when I was 20, and I moved to Singapore to study. And when I came back from Singapore, I ended up joining the company that I'd sold that to. And after a number of years there and completing my university studies in Australia, I decided to join a larger company, an Australian software company called Atlassian. And so I spent a number of years there looking after a product for Agile software development teams. And that journey at Atlassian over 5.5 years took me to San Francisco. So that's what took my wife and I across to San Francisco. And after spending some time with Atlassian in San Francisco, I was invited to join Twitter. And my role there with Twitter was actually to coach product managers. So to go from being a product manager full-time to spending my energy helping other product managers improve and work with their teams. And did that for a while, had an American daughter, and decided with my wife that we would move back to Australia to be closer to the family.
That is quite a move. I think yeah. It's very adventurous, I would say. So in your announcement, you said you went to a 2 million ARR, which is remarkable. Maybe you can first explain to all of us what that means.
Sure.
And why it is remarkable, and what have been your key success factors?
Okay, so returning to Australia with a young daughter, 18-month-old, and my wife, we didn't want to go back to a capital city. We wanted to go to a regional lifestyle, a smaller regional area where it was nicer to raise a family, or we felt that at least it would be nicer to raise a family. And in doing so, it meant that there weren't a lot of product manager roles available. There weren't a whole lot of software companies where we'd chosen to live, and so I decided to start one. And I was very fortunate that one of my good friends who'd also worked at Atlassian as an engineer had also moved with his wife to America, had also had an American daughter. I was able to convince him and his wife to move back to Australia and to start this business. And so we started working together in January of 2016. So we've been going for about 2.5 years now in this business. And 2 million ARR is $2 million in annual recurring revenue. So we've surpassed that now at this point in time. But yeah, we're just a bit beyond $2 million in annual recurring revenue for this financial year.
How long exactly did it take you to get to that number?
So Dave, having a 2-month-old daughter, and me having an 18-month-old daughter, our wives provided a lot of encouragement for us to make the business a success and make it a success quickly. And that encouragement was really good because we got to the point where within 6 months we were break even. So we'd started in January. We launched our first Easy Agile product in March. We sold a license the first afternoon to a German GmbH company for 50 users. and we didn't look back. And so we were we were cash flow break even by the end of June, so 6 months in, and we were profitable from then on. And we started out paying ourselves a pretty meagre wage in terms of Australia, but it was enough just to keep feeding the family, because we obviously had to do that. And now we are a team of 6.
Can you tell a bit more about what you do exactly now with Easy Agile?
Sure. So we have this company that I'd worked for previously, and that my business partner Dave had worked for previously, Atlassian. Atlassian provides tools for software development teams, and they provide a marketplace, much like the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. You can sell your apps on the Atlassian marketplace, only you're not selling them to me or Eckhart or Paul, you're selling them to the respective companies. And instead of being $1, $2 a piece, the products range in from $100 for 10 users to 16,000 US for unlimited users. And we have 2 products. One is our story mapping product, and the other is a road mapping product. And they both sit on top of Atlassian Jira.
Excellent. And you showed me your brochure, and you have great references, especially in Germany.
Yeah.
Some pretty big and well-known companies. How did that came about?
It actually came about with our great friends at seibert-media. We've known Martin and the team here for many years. I've known them for, I guess, 10 years now, and it's kind of like an easy entree into the German market. And obviously for us being 30 something hours away, right? Like we don't get here, we don't get the chance to meet with customers here. Even getting on the phone with a customer is a challenge, because your 9 a.m. is my 6 p.m. or something at this point in time. And of course, what am I doing at 6 p.m.? I'm feeding 2 kids, and then I'm getting 2 kids through the bath, and I'm getting 2 kids off to bed. So I've got no chance to really get in touch with our audience here. But we're fortunate that Germany is actually our second biggest audience, our second biggest customer market globally. And I think that speaks volumes about the agile software development practices here in Germany.
Yeah. Maybe you can elaborate on that, because we haven't touched yet on the key success factors and what lean startup, the principle, means to you.
Yeah, okay. It's interesting. So living in Australia and working with Atlassian, Atlassian is now a public company, right? Atlassian's now a $15 billion US company. But when I joined Atlassian was 60 people, and it was a very lean operation, right? Like if you were flying 30 hours to Europe, you were definitely flying economy. There were no perks, right? Very, very lean company. But obviously at that point, with 60 people, they had product market fit, they'd proven it. It was more a matter of scaling the business. And they've done that tremendously over the years. And so Dave and I, my business partner Dave and I, we took a lot from the Atlassian that we grew up in, essentially, in terms of how we approached building our company, validating customer problems, validating a solution to that or a potential solution to that, and then going from there to actually deliver that and start to scale the business. So the demographics that you shared earlier, it was interesting because, based on that, I'm an advanced startup. We have 6 people, or we're a small startup because we've only been going 2.5 years. So I'm not sure where we fit. But these days we don't consider ourselves a startup. These days we just consider ourselves a small business, because we kind of feel like we've gotten over that product market fit hurdle, and like Atlassian back in the day, it's now a matter of scaling this business globally. Yeah.
So you also worked for Twitter.
Yes.
What would you say was your major takeaway that you could use for your company, right, to get profitable that fast?
Well, from Twitter, yeah. Twitter only just got profitable, right? Like there's no, seriously. This is I guess it's a terrible thing to say, but there's more. I took more from Twitter about what not to do. Mm-hmm. So if you contrast Atlassian with Twitter, Atlassian very lean. like operationally, validate ideas, be very judicious with the employee headcount growth, things like that. We always felt like we could have done with 100 more people. At Twitter had raised so much money that in my first 12 months at Twitter, we added over 1,000 engineers. Like in 12 months, we hired and onboarded 1,000 engineers. That's insane, right? It basically says money is free and we can do whatever we want. It was absolutely not lean in any sense. So as far as lean startup goes, I didn't take anything from the Twitter that I experienced. There's a whole lot of lessons learned and things to avoid as far as I'm concerned.
But that's as important as the
that's as
good
important.
learnings, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So scale within your means. Constantly validate with your customers. Run experimentation. I mean, as far as experimentation goes, at Twitter we were very, very sophisticated with experimentation. We introduced in late 2014, we always had very thorough data and analytics about experiments, but we actually launched a very thorough process around launching an experiment. So you would need to have, as a product manager at Twitter, you would need to have basically an investment thesis for your experiment. What am I hoping to achieve? What are my desired outcomes for the product that you're responsible for? And what's the success criteria? And as a product manager, you might work on that with a data scientist. Because the data scientist might say, look, Eckhart, some of this data we do have, some of this data we don't have, and together you'd find what success criteria looks for. And then you'd take that to the leadership team, the product leadership team, to get that experiment approved or green lighted, at which point in time you would then build that and take that. So it was quite a thorough process, but I think it was one of the more interesting things for me to take away from Twitter.
Yeah. I would love to drill down more on the question of validating with customers, with real customers. I mean, one of the big themes in Lean Startup is get out of the building. You've heard about that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Can you share with us some of the best practices that you applied?
Well, what we found effective, and as I say, it's difficult for us to get over to Germany or to get to North America. And so we do take opportunities like this when there's a conference on to go and meet our customers. But we do rely heavily on video conferencing. We rely heavily on a feedback mechanism. So, one of the earliest things that we did with our story mapping product, and it's fair to say that like the story mapping product, we're not the first story mapping product, but we had a differentiator, and the differentiator was we were the first story mapping product that was on top of Jira. It was a native solution. It was on the Atlassian marketplace. Story mapping as a practice, like I'd been doing story mapping on walls with post-it notes for years, since 2010. So it was a really familiar practice for me. I was kind of almost my own best customer in that respect. And I'd run many story mapping sessions at Twitter, and so I knew what would be an effective digital equivalent of that physical story mapping session.
But how do you evaluate the feedback that you get from clients? Because they may all say, oh yeah, this is a great product, we love it, we'll buy it, and at the end they have no clue. I mean, how do you assess? Do you have any scientific method?
Yeah, how would I say a scientific method? So one, customer interviews is a qualitative thing that we just take. We dump all of that into Confluence and we record all of those notes. It's something we can always refer back to. It's something we can search through. But the quantitative is when customers ask about specific functionality or they have a specific problem, that will go into our backlog. So it goes into our Agile product backlog. And alongside that, we link all of our support requests, or we link all of that feedback. So then I know that some customers asked about X, Y, Z. It's not just Eckhart's asked about it. It's Eckhart and Paul and Sally and Betsy. There's maybe 8, 10, 20 different people. And so when it gets to, and generally you just ignore that stuff, right? There's enough going on that, like I have enough stuff to do to keep the business going and growing that goes to one side. And we have a vision for our product that's been informed by the conversations and the face-to-face conversations with our customers. And as things on that list align with our vision, or as our vision gets to that sort of area, we'll then go back to this and refer back to it and pull up all of those customer conversations so that we can piece together what's the common thread. One of the things that we're really afraid of is we're really afraid of taking that garden path and just providing something for one customer. I'm not interested in providing something for one customer. I'm not interested in providing bespoke software development. I'm trying to find something that thousands of customers are going to pick up. And I think the approach that we've taken has worked reasonably well because we have over 1,200 customers today. And it's just a matter of us now. We have different maturity with the two different products. So our story mapping product is 2 years old. Our road mapping product's about 18 months old. And as a result, like the way that we approach customer interactions is different for the two products. The one that's now more mature, the story map, I'm more likely to say no because I've now got a much stronger vision for that. The road mapping product, we've spent the last, Tegan and I are obviously doing these conversations at the moment, but the team has spent the last 3 months validating ideas around this and taking those prototypes and you know, sales material, like prototype sales material to our customers and getting feedback on it. Even today we were asking about pricing, like would it make sense, would it be appropriate to ask this much for it? Oh yeah, that would be okay. And so, you know, we're always trying to get that level of feedback about our products.
So we saw that we have some people with lower experience with lean practices. What would be your recommendation based on the experience you had over the last years for someone that is rather new to the topic and to lean practices? Are there some basic things in terms of the mindset or practices where you could say, okay, you should start with this and that? Or?
It's interesting. I was thinking about, as you said that, I was thinking about the question from Michaela that came up before. Like, if you're in a big business, how do you kind of do this? One of the things that worked well for me was actually to run a meetup. So in San Francisco, I wanted to learn more about a particular practice. It was Agile marketing. And I didn't have, in my environment in the business, I couldn't scratch that itch, right? Like, it just wasn't appropriate at Atlassian to introduce Agile marketing. And so I used a lean startup approach on a meetup. You know, we started with an event called Sprint Zero. There were about 20 people that came together to kind of talk about this idea that we'd been chatting on Facebook and Twitter and all this sort of stuff. And we just kind of said, hey, can we come together and spend a day? And that was like this early validation. Yeah, there's people that are interested in talking about this. And then we went from that and we said, let's do a meetup next month. And we got 50 people to a meetup. And we had, and it's, you know, it rolled from there. And as we were going, we expanded the scope, or our aspiration changed. So as we got to a certain point, we upped our aspiration. As we got to that point, we upped our aspiration. We're going to go find sponsors. So we had 3 venture capital sponsors for the meetup. So beer, wine, whatever you wanted, beautiful office to hold it in. You know, we kept getting to these milestones, and then we just kept elevating our experience. And so if you're in a company, I'd challenge you to say, like, how can I start small and just validate in a little way in my big company, and then how can I use some success there to build up momentum and bring someone else in and bring someone else into these practices or this approach that you're trying to pursue.
So as you grow your company and hopefully you're on a great path, what would you recommend to other companies that are growing fast, substantially? How to keep the lean startup approach? How to not deviate to become that kind of big company that has a lot of overhead? Do you have any thoughts around that?
It's a simple one for me. It's like, don't take external funding. Like don't take in my opinion, like, don't take external funding, because you can be true to yourself and true to your customers. Money people, I know, and there might be people in this room this is not appropriate, but seriously, I know enough founders that have taken money, and generally the people that you're taking money from are so far removed from lean, are so far removed from product development. Like, one of the first conversations that we had, we thought about taking money, right? Before we bootstrapped, we thought about taking money, and we had this couple of gentlemen that offered us $500,000 $500,000 in equity based on name alone. Like we didn't even have an idea for a product at this stage. It was just, we want to play in the Atlassian marketplace. That was all we had. So we had to validate everything before we had a story mapping product. And they offered us $500,000 and they wanted a seat on the board, and it forced us to ask all these questions, Dave and I. And one of the questions that we turned around and we asked them, we said, like $500,000 is a lot of money. We just want to start small and validate that there's something here before we take your money and fucking piss it away, right? Sorry, excuse my language. Before we burn it. And anyway, we couldn't come to terms because in their mind they were saying, well, we're going to give you $500,000 so that you can go hire a team of 4 people to build something. And we're going, I mean, we've got product ideas, but we haven't validated them. Like, there's no point in us taking your money. And as a result of not taking money, we grew out of cash flow, which maybe means that we don't grow as fast, but it does mean at every step of the way we're very judicious with how we spend our money and where we invest. And my single biggest piece of advice to other potential founders of lean startup style businesses would be, don't take a lot of money. That would be number one.
It's more the organic growth philosophy. So
yeah. But what I actually found remarkable, so we had some sessions this afternoon together, and you are currently making more than 2 million ARR. And at the same time, you decided to stay small in terms of the number of people.
Yes.
So you said you could hire a lot more people, but you are you are keeping it smaller with a team of 6. And the thing that I found remarkable was that you are really keen on getting the people onboarded in your company, right? Because you said, okay, it takes us a quarter to have them onboarded at least. And that's one reason why you don't want to scale that fast, as far as I got it, because it takes time to really get them onboarded, and that's something that is nearly not possible if you hire 1,000 people within 1 year.
Yeah. I mean, look, at Twitter, in Twitter's case, we bought a training company that had 20 trainers to teach the people that we hired how we wanted them to work at Twitter. Like, the investment was phenomenal. I mean, we had $500 million a quarter in stock-based compensation, right? Being granted. Like, it's burning money, right? Like, it's great if you're in the boat, but like, if you're an investor, it's not really great. And being, one of a small shareholding where I own half the business, Dave and I have talked, like, our investment thesis. We talked about being a 2.5, a 5, a $10 million business at a 50% net profit ratio. And being a profitable business means that we can pursue these community projects that we want to get involved in. So one of the things that we participate in is Pledge 1%. And you pledge 1% of employee time, you pledge 1% of your product, you pledge 1% of your profit, and you donate it. And we've been fortunate because we're profitable and we're not beholden to investors, that we can just spend that money. We can, motor neurone disease, if anyone's familiar with motor neurone disease, like, that's something that's important for a couple of our staff members, and so we donate to that cause. And being small and having thousands of customers allows us to be profitable, which allows us to give money back to the community or the charities that we're interested in or passionate about. Yeah.
Well, it's great that you keep that focus on helping society as well. I think we have maybe time for one more question. So a lot of thought goes into learning within the lean startup approach. So can you maybe share some of your kind of techniques that you use in manifesting the learning process at your company?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to note is that we started the company to learn. So Dave and I are both like mid-career, we're mid-30s, and so the first thing is that we wanted to constantly push ourselves to learn. And so running the business has been a great opportunity to learn. Just actually putting ourselves in the shoes of founders has forced us to learn legal, accounting, a whole host of other things. As far as it goes with our products and with our customers, We do pull on the qualitative, so the customer interviews, the support requests, the phone calls that we take, and the people that we meet at events. But we rely, because we're in Australia, we do rely heavily on the quantitative. And so we instrument analytics in our products, and we wrote our own analytics service in-house so that we don't capture any personally identifiable information, so that we're GDPR compliant, like all of this sort of stuff, which is very important, obviously, for our German customers. And we interrogate that data on a daily basis to find out how our customers are using the product. And one of the earliest things that we learned, actually, within a couple of months of introducing the analytics in 2016, our hypothesis for the product, the story mapping product, was that people would use this product during project inception. That's typically what you do. You do this technique with the team on the whiteboard, and you do it at project inception, and then you pull all of this stuff down, and you put it into a tool like Jira, and you work away at it, and you execute on it. And what we found from our analytics was that people weren't using this at project inception. People were using this every week, right? And we were just looking at some data over the weekend for one of our German customers that we're meeting this week, and they have 2,900 people that have used it in the last 30 days. And so we're going, okay, well, there's the product functionality that we introduced in early April was as a direct result of this quantitative analysis, or the quantitative data and the analysis that we did around that. And we did a whole release focused on making that particular weekly activity, the weekly backlog grooming, more effective. And that, obviously, that works really well for us, because it's not a conversation with one or two. They absolutely inform us, but it's a conversation, it's looking at how tens of thousands of people use the product.
Okay.
Yeah.
You also talked about the Kaizen Forum. Maybe you can share something about that, because you highly recommend it.
Yeah, so two things that I would recommend for founders. One is bootstrap, don't take money unnecessarily from money people. And two is find a forum of other founders to connect with. And you'll find it at an event like this, obviously. And so I joined a small group called we called ourselves the Kaizen Forum. Kaizen is Japanese for continuous improvement. And the 8 of us would meet for 3 hours once a month. And it was a shoulder to cry on. It was someone to pick you up and give you a good kick up the bum if you weren't doing enough. It was a high five. It was a really great support group. And we ran this group for 18 months. And at about the end of last year, 5 of the businesses had kind of petered out. And that's to be expected, right? It's lean startup. Some get through the different hurdles and others don't make it through. And so at that point in time, we wound that group up. And I don't have another forum or another avenue for that today, but it was so valuable for me to have this group of people, this 7 other people, 4 women, 3 other men, that were building one another up and encouraging each other to go and succeed. And I honestly, I can't stress that enough. It's really important. And especially when there's people in that group that were, also had kids, and I had my second kid when the business was 6 months old. You're sleep deprived. In my case, my wife was asking, to come home and bathe the kid and all this. So that support group was really valuable for me.
That's awesome. I haven't heard of something comparable here, but maybe that's an idea to start on such a group.
Let's open it up a bit. The reason why I have this kind of microphone is that maybe some of you have questions for Nick. So if anybody wants to know something about Nick's company, about his experience with Twitter or Atlassian, or about lean practices, okay. Maybe you can just tell us your name and then.
Hello, my name's Nelly, and I was just wondering, because you were speaking about your way of analyzing success, what are the actual measures that you look at when you analyze success? And also, my second question would be, how did you go through circles of iteration, if you had any, until you got to the product that you stick to today?
Oh, okay.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so to repeat the question, the first part of the question was how do you measure success? And I talk about that in terms of success personally and for the company and for the product, for our customers. And then the second part of the question was how did you iterate on the product towards, how did you constantly learn and iterate towards success for the product? So personally, my wife and I, we write these decade kind of visions. So what does it look, when we are having a glass of red and we're celebrating our 40th birthday, what are the things that we're going to be celebrating? When we're having a glass of red and we're celebrating our 50th birthday, what are the things that we're going to be celebrating? And so we write those and we constantly, we talk about those throughout the year, but they don't evolve and change much. But the 30s, for me, was, in our relationship, it was me learning how to build a business and stretching myself in that respect. And so from that comes the business and what does success for the business look like? And that we talk a lot in the business about providing a great place to work, but also making sure that our people are paid well enough so that they can pay off a mortgage and send the kids to the school of their choice. And so to do that, then we come to the customers and how do we make our customers successful. And when we look at customer success, we think about things like our support contact rate. We think about things like our net promoter score from our customers. We think about things like the monthly active users for our product. And so, is our product retentive? And that's kind of like a proxy for us for value if they're coming back and they're using it again and again. And so that's how we think about success. We use a method called Objectives Key Results, which Andy Grove at Intel wrote about 35 years ago. And it was a technique that I used at Twitter to great success. And so we use that technique at Easy Agile to measure this within the company. And then as far as iterating the products towards success for our customers, the first version of our product, like we went back and looked at it, Tegan and I were looking at it a couple of weeks ago, it is a super thin product, right? Like we took a whole lot of feedback to build this product. We delivered it in 30 days. And as I said, we sold a GmbH, a license to a German company in that first afternoon. And it was feedback from that first company that led us to, the next version of that product and the next version. And we're very good, quite frankly, at saying no. Like we're very good at saying to our customers, no, that's a bad idea. Here's why it's a bad idea. Or alternatively, we say not yet. And customers will always ask, like, well, when am I going to get my thing? And it's like, honestly, I don't know, right? And I don't know because we're agile and we're fluid and things change. And if that's not appropriate for you today, then I encourage you not to buy today. By and large, though, there's enough value in the product at a certain point that customers will still buy and they'll be happy to wait. And so you can iterate on a month-to-month, quarterly basis. Our second product, the roadmap product, we set ourselves a really, really short time frame. My co-founder Dave went on a family holiday to Japan to visit his daughter's grandma in Japan, and so anyway, he's supposed to be relaxing with his daughter who's 12 months old and seeing grandma and all this sort of stuff. And he decided, because the weather was so bad, that he's going to write this other product that we've been talking about. And so it was 7 days in Japan while drinking beer and eating ramen that he built this other product. And we launched that. And again, you can't build a lot in 7 days, right? And if you fail, it's 7 days, right? It's not like we gave up a whole lot. And that one, it's taken us probably, because we're balancing the two products, it's probably taken us 18 months to get to the same level of maturity with that product that we got to in 3 or 4 months with the first product, just because we're trying to balance two things now. And to contrast that with a couple of products that we're working on at the moment, we've spent 3 months just talking about them because they're areas that we're not as knowledgeable in. And so we're talking about them and spending a lot more time in exploration with our customers or with potential customers. Yeah.
Is there still a second question remaining regarding constant learning, or is it fine? Okay, perfect. Another question?
Yeah, my name is Dieter. You mentioned quite remarkably that the feedback while you were on the way from your team, from your peers in that Kaizen group was quite important to you. So I just wonder, is that format the format to be chosen by startups, or how would you consider in that environment, for example, in kind of accelerator environment where multiple startups are working, being together, having mentors around them? Would that be a similar experience? Would that be supporting your basic idea on the Kaizen group?
So yes and no. So I found the Kaizen members at an accelerator, right? We were, at one point in time, we were all members of a co-working space. We were all members of the same co-working space at one point. But for the actual format, we have a very strict format for that. So we've got 3 hours once a month. We do a quick update on where everyone's at from a personal, business, and like from a family, and a business perspective. And that's kind of like a mental health thing. Like, how are you feeling, right? And that's really powerful because you get to trust these people. They're telling you some of the most intimate details of their life. And so you build up trust with these people really quickly. I found it quite interesting anyway. And so every month we would stay to the same agenda, and we would alternate. 1 month we would go out for lunch before our 3-hour session, and the next month we would go out for dinner and we would have a glass of red or a beer or something like that afterwards. And then twice a year we would go away for a trip. And so this was like a deep dive, 2-day. We're going to focus on OKRs, and I'm going to help you, Dieter, I'm going to help you write objectives, key results for your business, and you're going to help critique mine, and vice versa. And so we'd look at different aspects, or we're going to do marketing, or whatever it happens to be. And so it was a really great supportive environment. It's modelled off the approach from Entrepreneurs Organisation out of the US. And one of the key things is that you're speaking from perspective, you're not sharing advice. So Dieter, tell me a time when you had to deal with a difficult employee. Not like, I've got a difficult employee and you start telling me, oh, you should just fire them. It's like, tell me a time when you had this experience. Now, the Entrepreneurs Organisation is only open to people that are doing over $2 million in revenue. So it wasn't an opportunity for me to join that prior to this financial year. And that's why I think like starting a forum within your co-working space or accelerator is probably a really great place to find a support network. Yeah. Okay.
One last question. One from you, Eckhart.
On the spot?
On the spot?
Sorry. No, Nick, you have anything else that you would like to share?
Yeah, so be wary of taking money. Money comes easily, especially in this low interest rate environment. Find a network of people to support you, and don't be afraid to start a business when you're starting a family.
And don't be afraid to say no.
And don't be afraid to say, well, fuck, you better say no. Like, you're going to get used to saying no, otherwise you can't please all the people all the time.
Okay, so how can people stay in touch with you and reach out to you?
We put some brochures out, but if not, you can reach out at easyagile.com or nick@easyagile.com. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Dankeschön.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Nick.
Cheers,
That's
Eckhart.
great. Thank you.